And here we go. Oh, let's meet our buddy Maximo for a moment there.
Welcome.
Hi, hello, welcome back to TechnoPoverty. As always, I'm Henry.
I'm Jakob.
And once again, we're going to be playing through some video games, bouncing some books off of them, chatting with y'all there in the chat. And through that, we're going to play around with some ideas and just see what comes up during this chill time. We've been playing MAXIMO, Ghost of Glory, while going through a variety of fantasy works. The first night, it was primarily about Lord Dunsany and his story, The Fotress Unvanquishable, save for Sacnoth. The second night, we were talking a bit more about Yeats and The Stolen Child. Last stream, it was a lot of Le Guin and The Left Hand of Darkness. I actually have, Le Guin here. We've been talking about, Jacob's been going through The King in Yellow as really we do the stuff. We've been including some Gene Wolfe, some J.R.R. Tolkien. But tonight we're going to kind of finish off MAXIMO. And I think to finish off MAXIMO, I want to bring up kind of an author I think that thematically fits.
We get some green beans over here when you get a chance. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, the dog.
The dog. We got to keep. Barney expects to be paid.
All right, so. A lot of this is improvisational. We talk with the chat. We have a few books, but as ideas come up, they come up. And tonight we're going to talk about J.R.R. Martin. Earlier today, I shared his short story, With Morning Comes Mistfall. We're going to be talking about that one a lot. We're going to be talking about Song of Ice and Fire. We'll talk a little bit about the Armageddon Rag, but I must confess, I don't have any copies of A Song of Ice and Fire on me, even though I love J.R.R. Martin.
Interesting.
Yeah, I guess space-wise, I just didn't know if I could manage it in the same way that I can just carry around the Armageddon Rag, which is also quite good. But I think we're going to circle around back to some of the Philip K. Dick ideas on Ghost. We've been talking a bit about Shirley Jackson through this as well, as far as what being haunted means and such. But yeah, we're going to just hop into MAXIMO, and we'll talk through the rest of what we're planning with the channel through the weekend. Quick shout out, we do have a planned screening of the 1984 Val Kilmer classic, Top Secret.
R.I.P. Val Kilmer.
That's going to be happening Saturday at 8 p.m. on the Discord. You can look up some of our socials, and if you look at the Ko-fi or the Patreon, you'll see how to access the Discord there. Of course, always follow us, like us. We primarily stream on Twitch because we like chatting with y'all. That kind of organic interplay really leads this into places that a traditional essay probably wouldn't. And also, it's just fun to play live and see the live play and the, how describing these ideas and putting myself to the test while trying to grind it out live really changed my perception of just what I'm trying to articulate. Anyways, without further ado, let's get to MAXIMO. And I had to fade in right when Akil is beating Sophia.
The perfect slap.
We'll skip the rest of the cutscene for now. But to recap, MAXIMO, returning from the Crusades, finds his kingdom seized by his best friend Achille. Achille has taken Sophia, his bride, and he tries to kill MAXIMO. But because Achille is using evil necromancy powers to do what he is doing, the Grim Reaper doesn't like that, and he decides to partner with MAXIMO to set things right. This is why MAXIMO can die and come back in the game over system, and it fuels the whole engine of this quest. You have to you're on a quest for revenge, but you have to do it for the sake of death, not so much getting Sophia back. It's more MAXIMO. Well, we'll see. I don't want to say too much without spoiling the ending, but here we are in Castle MAXIMO.
What was that? What hit you immediately?
This guy threw an axe at me.
Oh.
No, I just did that double spike thing. I wasn't doing that last session. If you don't tune into the irregular streams, which we do kind of unscheduled and improvised, sometimes throughout the week when it's not Monday or Thursday, if like some news is happening or
Just got some time to kill.
something cool came out that we want to talk about, or we'll have an irregular stream. We recently watched Cory Booker doing his filibuster, which I have some complex feelings about. Maybe we'll get into this episode, but you know what? Let's start with J.R.R. Martin. That's who I want to talk about and where we want to go with the whole book video game dynamic here.
Yeah, what about what about J.R.R. Martin is really being brought to the forefront with this?
So in the past, we've been talking about conditioned states of like protagonist brain. J.R.R. Martin is kind of the continuing tradition of that. If we're going from Ursula Le Guin to Gene Wolfe to J.R.R. Martin, sort of after the 50s and 60s, kind of in this post-Tolkien landscape of fantasy. Michael Moorcock's worth noting as well. But I want to bring up J.R.R. Martin because even though A Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire characterizes like grim and cynical, there's some romance to it, at least in the books, that I think the show misses the mark on, and I think it's very key to understanding like J.R.R. Martin's place in fantasy.
Okay. Oh, where is this at now?
We're inside Castle Maximo. This is like Bowser's Castle, the final dungeon, World 8 of Super Mario Bros. 3. Do I want a gold shield? I do not. Or maybe I do. I think it has more bars.
Man, yeah, that attack is really nice. Very helpful compared to just the usual.
But the reason I brought up J.R.R. Martin is because he is challenging fantasy hero narratives, but, well, let's just get right to how A Song of Ice and Fire hasn't been finished. I think that's due to him trying to imagine the way the world shifts on a certain macro level of idea. If we're talking about conditioned states and the machinery that makes conditioned states, he's interested in what happens when that machine breaks and how a new one comes to be. And
Like
I'm not sure if that's something you can do, and I'm not sure if he's sure that's something you can do, which might be why it's taking so long and kind of at its pace. How do you articulate how the whole world changes? That's a big, dense idea, even when you're trying to like condense it down to a fantasy metaphor, you know?
Yeah, that's a really big thing to chew on. Man. Because how long has he been working on this one?
I believe the original Game of Thrones came out in like 92
Okay.
or 94, sometime within that
The
era.
90s.
Yeah.
For some reason I was thinking 80s, but yeah, no.
He worked on like Beauty and the Beast, the TV show in the 80s.
Oh man, the one with the incredible effects makeup.
Yeah.
Great one.
Dance came out in 2011. Thank you, King of Mystery.
Yeah, thanks, King Mystery.
But let me sum up with Morning Comes a Mistfall to kind of begin with what I think is interesting about J.R.R. Martin in the context of everything we're doing. With Morning Comes Mistfall is a short story he wrote. It's a sci-fi short story, but it feels pretty realist. It's not focused on like a lot of techno-gadgetry stuff.
Yeah.
It is kind of looking at a sort of secular scientific liberalism with a critical eye, and in that way it's science fiction, but it feels very much... The sci-fi is basically to set up the setting. So there's a hotel on this planet, and this planet has a thing called Mistfall. What that means is this hotel's like on top of the mountains of this planet, and in the morning there's a mistfall. When the sun rises, the atmosphere has fluids in it that like dense up into a mist, and they fall down. So they kind of sink into the valleys of this planet, and it's a really neat phenomenon. And then in the evening, when the sun lowers, the mist rises back up. And there's like cool light effects and stuff that are happening when this is happening. It's called mist rise. But mist fall, mist rise, it's really beautiful. Okay. There's one hotel on this planet because when this planet was originally discovered by spacefarers, people landed on it and got lost in the mist and died and were never heard from again.
Yeah.
And so like Bigfoot-like rumors kind of pop up that like, oh, there's these rays in the mist. No one's ever seen these rays. No one knows shit about these rays. People claim to have seen them, but there's no like actual evidence. But it kind of becomes like a big draw for this hotel. Like, hey, come to our hotel. Like, you get to chill on a mountain. The hotel looks like a castle. It's like a very lavish hotel. And you just chill on the mountain. And so, like, when the sun sets and the sun rises, you know, it's White Lotus. You're chilling there. You're watching the mist rise, the mist fall. You're supposed to just enjoy it. But the reason this story is taking place on this planet at this time, at this hotel, is because there's a scientist there who has come to discover if the wraiths of the mist are real. And the kind of protagonist of the story is a journalist who is there documenting the scientist's journey. And this journalist basically bounces between the hotel owner and the doctor doing the research. The short story is basically the journalist hanging around the two of them throughout the excavation, and both of them make arguments for like, oh, there's nothing there, or like, why are you even searching if something's there? The hotel owner sounds like he wants to keep the whole like Bigfoot-esque rumor going because it's profitable, and it seems kind of like cynical, and that he's like trying to lie to keep people like in mystery of what's going on.
Yeah. Classic Scooby-Doo-esque.
Yeah, and so the scientist is a very logic and fact secularist, like, well, you're perpetuating ignorance, we can't let that happen, like, we need to rigorously explore this planet, and like, if necessary, we may vacuum out all this mist to figure out what's out there. Because there are like wild animals out there, there's rough terrain. Tourists have, over the years, died, not because of the wraiths, but it's kind of ambiguously pointed to that you can just like fall off a cliff edge or bump into a tree or encounter a wild animal while you're out there in the mist, because the mist is very tricky. But also, like, sure, it's bullshit that there's wraiths, or it might be bullshit that there's wraiths. Again, the story's very good at towing that line. But there's very beautiful natural phenomenon still occurring on this planet with the mist, and it is a pretty cool atmosphere. The author describes themselves as kind of falling in love with the place as they're hanging out. Like, they get used to going out into the forest, and like, yeah, it's like as dangerous as going out into like, you know, the wilderness or a park, but like, you can still adventure out there.
Yeah.
What up?
What up?
But so the author's kind of falling in love with it in its own way, and you see through the author's eyes that like, even if like the hotel owner's a bit cynical in like the spookiness factor of like, ooh, the wraiths, like he does kind of also see that it's like a beautiful place, like naturally, as far as like the geography and the geology, and the mistfall phenomenon is really cool, and there's literally no other place in the galaxy like it, according to this story. Ouch. Spike Knights.
Yeah, that dude's kind of a prick.
But what happens is they don't find any of the wraiths, and they decide to vacuum out the mist. And then all the tourism goes away from the planet. So even though the scientist was like, well, it'd be more profitable to vacuum out the mist and colonize this place, they do that, and it's not profitable at all. It's kind of an indictment of like this kind of efficiency-minded corporate liberalism.
Dude, that's so funny. It was like, that happened in some part of Florida, with like Three Sisters Springs, Florida, with like where the manatees go. It's like absolutely clear, beautiful water, but all the bottom was like vegetation. And they're like, well, this water is beautiful, but we really want to have like a sandy bottom to really attract people, make it incredible. It's like, cool. So they filled the whole thing with a bunch of sand, and then that just made it murky as hell. And then like the tourism just dropped off, so then they had to go back and get all of the sand out of there that they just filled.
Right, so the planet had both a cooler kind of natural phenomenon going with the mist there that made more money, even if people were like, ooh, the Bigfoot. And like, as far as the deaths go, it's gonna sound horrible to say like they weren't that many, but like there is an argument made between the doctor and the hotel owner about how like back on Earth, you know, deaths of despair and such, far more outweigh any of like the 4 to 40 deaths that happen in like all the time the hotel's been open.
Oh, gotcha.
Just by scale, like what harm is it doing? Also, especially if it's just like again, if the journalist protagonist of our story can get accommodated to the landscape and pick up the general safety vibe, it does speak again to like maybe it's not as bad, and yeah, people do just get lost in the mist.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the story ends on kind of a bitter note where like nobody ends up profiting off of the mysterious planet anymore, and it's been stripped of its natural beauty. And it's like a good exercise in questioning like to what limit should like imagination be permitted, or what happens when maybe you're not imaginative enough. Because I think there's within the story a way you can read that like despite the ghost part being a lie, there's so much, natural beauty and phenomenon that occur within the planet that it's worth preserving as like a preserve, especially if it's not going to be profitable as like a winery it ends up becoming at the end.
Yeah.
Like, hey, if this is the only place in the galaxy this unique fog phenomenon happens, we don't need to vacuum out all the fog. But yeah, so because there's no good story to defend the actual the wraiths. Ironically, there's no good ghosts to speak up for why we should preserve this phenomenon. It's treated as disposable and lost, and I think that's kind of what I'm trying to tie back to with Philip K. Dick, with Shirley Jackson, and with this concept of being haunted. Is like, what do you choose to let possess you? It's also why I brought up I Saw the TV Glow earlier in a previous session.
Yeah, great movie.
Because it deals with like, you have to recognize what the structures you're operating under are making rational and logical to you.
Yeah.
And fiction is littered with stories of folks who don't square that away and are driven insane. Like right now, I'm trying to determine, am I Henry talking to the audience, or should I be focusing on Maximo platforming through this level, because I just died.
Luckily, you got the checkpoint earlier, but...
Am I going in the right direction is my question.
I can believe so.
I think we're getting other bots. Oh no.
And a Kevin VT. If you're real, what's the date today?
Robot, what are you up to?
Yeah. And who's the vice president of the United States in the current year? And if you do answer that, we might follow you back. Oh, love this guy's sound effect.
Yeah. Very Bluto. Which direction shall I go? Oh. I believe there's a locked chest in the ground here. And to get back to talking about the left hand of darkness, presence over progress. Should be mindful of these levels as they get more treacherous.
Yeah. Just love that floaty camera. Henry, I noticed you have the sword.
Yes, I have the sword on my... Yeah, show the camera.
Yeah, give you guys an idea.
So the reason that's on the table as far as like the mood board stuff goes is because earlier when I was talking about Gene Wolfe, the Sword are an Austin, Texas metal band. They're not... They do shows from time to time now, but they're not actively making new music, I believe. But that album right there is a concept album based on like the universe of the Book of the New Sun.
Okay.
And The Sword is a band I discovered in high school that led me to Yeats. They have another album which, in the liner notes, cites Yeats's The Stolen Child, which is something we were talking about 2 nights ago, I think, last time we played.
Yeah. Love it. Shotgun shooter. This game reminds me of Battlefield Earth with the camera angles.
Yes! The Dutch angle.
Yeah, just that weird floaty camera. Like almost Michael Bay-esque, but not.
There's no, like, Michael Bay still is swiveling around, like, points of gravity, and there's some, like, dynamism to where he's throwing that ball. Battlefield, not all the time, though. Transformers 2 has one of the worst spinning shots in any live-action movie. Revenge of the Fallen, I think, is the second one. I just remember my friend next to me in the theater literally, like, just yelling at the screen to stop, and he got very dizzy because there's a shot early on in Revenge of the Fallen where it's just spinning around Shia LaBeouf and Megan Fox for what feels like an hour.
Oh yeah, I know exactly.
They're talking in the yard. Yeah, it's burned in your head because of how just like viscerally like offensive it is.
The narrative language thrown. Yeah. Yep. No, thank you.
The Dutch angle, or like the Sam Raimi angle. Mm-hmm. Very Evil Dead, very Tim Burton, very goth cinema.
Right. And it works really well, though.
Yeah, there's something quaint to the era of curated camera, because while the PS2 had 2 dual sticks, they didn't quite use it in the way they like default to 2-stick like third-person controls now a lot of the time in games.
Yeah.
With the unified Unreal Engine and whatnot. I put up the shield and I drop it right when he swings.
You know, you gotta love that.
I gotta play better defense in this hedge maze.
Get that diamond though. Get that money. Those fucking roads.
Oh, there's little tiny ones. Oh no.
Oh. Try to poke you. Oh man, there's just like a whole army of folks.
Well, I mean, yeah, I am fighting an evil king. I suppose he would have an army of skeletons. That's bare minimum in Fantasyland. You gotta be a demon lord or have necromancy.
But it's always like, why are skeletons the default?